Good morning. My name is Jean DeVenny, and I use the pronouns she and her. I'm your worship associate for our service today. For those of you, is that better? Okay, thank you. For those of you needing a visual, I'm an elder white woman with graying hair and black glasses, wearing a black sweater and a chalice necklace. Seated on risers behind me are the members of our sanctuary choir wearing colorful stoles. It brings me such joy to look out and see your faces today and to imagine our Zoom participants' faces. Hello, Zoom, and welcome. I see in your faces so many things. I see the happiness that you are here gathered with friends. I see the solemnity of being in a sacred space. The shyness of those of you who are in a group that you may not know everyone or even anyone. I also see openness and resilience and courage. These are the qualities needed to face the challenges of our world today. And I cannot think of a better group of people with whom to meet those challenges. Welcome all.
Good morning. My name is Ember. I use they, them pronouns, and today I am wearing a lot of purple, yellow, and black soft layers. As we settle into this morning, I am mindful of how many of us arrive carrying the strain of living with compassion in a world shaped by pressure and contradiction. When our values brush against the limits of the world around us, something in us resists turning numb, and that resistance is powerful. So may this time we have taken this morning allow space for breath to deepen, for our inner compass to find its bearings again. And may the shared presence of this community remind us that we are carried by bonds of mutual care that are often stronger than we realize. Come, let us worship together.
Our congregation for the past several years has been supporting our national body, the Unitarian Universalist Association, in adopting Article 2, which is our shared covenant as a UU congregation. Our sabbatical pastoral care coordinator, Suzanne Reynolds, will light the chalice this morning as I read an excerpt from the Values and Covenant section of Article 2 on interdependence. We honor the interdependent web of all existence with reverence for the great web of life, and with humility we acknowledge our place in it. We covenant to protect the earth and all beings from exploitation. We will create and nurture sustainable relationships of care and respect, mutuality, and justice. We will work to repair harm and damaged relationships. Imperfection is better than inaction. We can't all lead the march with a megaphone. We don't all have the skills to write those articulate letters to our political people that are serving in political office. But we can all do something. Put stamps on postcards, cook a meal for demonstrators, send a check. The readings I chose today are 4 short, well-known quotations. May they inspire you to imperfect action. Joan Baez, lifelong activist, said, Action is the antidote to despair. My childhood hero, anthropologist Margaret Mead, wrote this: "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Anne Frank fled Germany with her family at age 4. They were hiding in Amsterdam from the Nazis and almost certain death when she wrote in her diary at age 13, "How wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world." And a current activist hero, Greta Thunberg, reminds us no one is too small to make a difference.
As our chalice lighting reminded us today, in our revised Article 2, Unitarian Universalists affirm interdependence as a core value. And in selecting it for our chalice lighting, I was reminded that that is exactly the sort of highly academic language I was raised in, being raised UU. Which was a tradition that taught me to ask big questions and to live with answers that might shift over time. I was taught that truth can be layered, that certainty is not the goal, and that faith is something we practice in relationship, not only with the sacred, but with each other. Our values are meant to shape our choices, our commitments, and the ways we show up for justice, even when the path forward is uncertain. And harm reduction tools remind us that we do what we can as we are with the tools we have. Now, for me, for a long time now, harm reduction is not just a public health or political framework, but it is a theological one. And it reflects what I was taught being raised UU, that we are not called to isolationism, but to relationship. And still, I also feel that pull back to black and white thinking. And I don't know if it's the autism or the lifelong trauma or the sort of collective that is living through the current moment, but that weight is real. And that wound that opens up when our deepest values come into conflict with systems that will not allow us to live them fully is what theologians and caregivers have come to name moral injury. This is an injury that lives in our nervous systems, and it shows up in fatigue, in avoidance, in that quiet panic feeling like we are always falling short. It is the spiritual weight of trying to live with integrity in a world that just wasn't built to support it. And I want to say that if you are feeling stretched thin, if you are tired or disoriented or struggling, know this: you are not broken and you are not alone. That ache is not a failure, it's a sacred signal. It is your spirit refusing to go numb. It is your body saying no to systems that ask you to betray what you hold most dear. Because even in that exhaustion and confusion, our values are still alive. And so, from November 25th to December 1st, there is a call to action from a range of leaders, including the People's Strike, Black Power Media, and regional organizers connected to mutual aid networks and cooperative economies. And the invitation this year is simple. For those 6 days, step back from major corporate spending during this busiest week of the year. The goal is to redirect, to reduce, or pause our consumption from companies that consolidate power at the expense of people and planet. So it's not just a call to consume less, but a call to think of our spending in alignment with our values. And this boycott is not the first of its kind, nor will it be the last, because companies like you know, have not simply captured a corner of the market, they have embedded themselves in the logistical and technological architectures that undergird much of our life. And I bet you all thought of a company, and I bet it wasn't the same company, but I bet there were like 5. The market is feeling a little bit cornered. The revised Article 2 speaks of interdependence as a spiritual principle, a way of understanding ourselves as part of something living and shared. And it begins with the words, "We honor the interdependent web of all existence. With reverence for the great web of life and with humility, we acknowledge our place in it." To me, the way that value is written reminds us that we are not set apart from the world, making choices in isolation. We live within it, held in relationship with one another and with all that surrounds us. Divestments, boycotts, and economic non-cooperation are not simply political tactics. They are spiritual practices rooted in that same covenantal promise. They remind us that we act not as isolated consumers, but as people bound to one another through shared harm and shared hope and shared responsibility. And I am self-aware. I know how much plastic I am wearing today. I wear a lot of makeup. I've chosen comfort in a lot of things. And I myself go back and forth on how deeply I can commit to things like divestments, and when my own lack of resources and limitations mean I just don't have the energy to spare. And I'm not making an argument against comfort or joy or utter absurdism in the face of fascism. Keep investing in those frog costumes. What I'm talking about is a system that relies on us going numb. And I know that feeling of being suspended in a system I didn't choose. And when I feel that familiar ache of compromised care, I try to remember that it is not only mine. It is a communal signal, a reminder that our choices belong to something larger than any one of us. And this is where moral injury becomes not only that private ache, but a communal one, lingering in the gap between our values and the systems we navigate. And when I say moral injury, I don't mean guilt and I don't mean shame. Moral injury is the body's protest against dehumanization. When we hold interdependent as a spiritual commitment, we begin to understand that our pain is not a failure of individual will, but a signal of a shared moral burden. The American Psychiatric Association has now formally acknowledged moral injury within emerging diagnostics frameworks as a form of trauma. They acknowledge it as a spiritual wound, a break between what we believe and what we are forced to tolerate. And that is why this boycott and so many other activities this month matter, even if they can't be perfect. It doesn't matter. It matters not because every person can or could fully divest, but because thousands of people are trying together to shift the moral narrative. Because withholding our participation, even temporarily, reminds us that this system is neither neutral, nor inevitable, nor natural. And right now, many of us are afraid. And even in the face of all that fear, many in our community have stepped forward with tremendous courage. And I do want to lift up those who have been marching and demonstrating and blockading and accompanying neighbors to court, showing up for direct action even when it is risky and hard, because that is sacred work. But I also want to name that not everyone can take to the streets. Not everyone can risk arrest or exposure or that kind of vulnerability, and that does not make our love any less fierce. There are many kinds of resistance and many ways to live into our shared values. I always feel extra frayed this time of year. But this particular year, I also know it's about so much more. It's the steady pressure of daily exposure to injustice and surveillance and suppression and the flood of news that our nervous systems were never meant to carry. And so if you are feeling that overwhelm, I do want to repeat that you're not imagining it, you're not weak, you are responding with clarity and care to a world that wants you to stop responding with clarity and care. The fact that we are feeling and noticing and resisting is beautiful, and I see you, we see you, and I also see the exhaustion. And this ache, as painful as it is evidence that our values remain alive. And what's really been beautiful to watch about that is watching people who aren't even the immediate target of harm stepping up, who hold certain privileges, but whose spirits still say no. We are called to live faithfully in a wounded world. And I know that many of us in Eugene and UUCE are already living these values. In these past few weeks, as we've watched our pop-up pantry grow in response to our government's weaponization of the hunger of millions, has also revealed just how deep that food access crisis really runs and how many families were already stretched too thin. But it's also revealed something else, that we know what to do, that we know how to respond, that when harm surfaces, we move towards it, not away. Week after week, we gather. We don't erase injustice, but we reduce harm. I see these values too in so many corners of our lives, in mutual aid circles and neighborhood networks, in the decisions about how to spend and where to show up, in the quiet acts of care that no one else sees. So, from December 25th through December 1st, I will be joining the call to step back from major corporate spending by slowing my own purchases, redirecting what I can towards local community efforts. But really, I'm going to be using this week as a time to notice where my habits have been shaped by convenience instead of care. Article 2 says that we covenant to protect Earth and all beings from exploitation, and that we commit to nurturing relationships of care, respect, and justice. And it also promises that we will work to repair harm and damaged relationships. And that includes relationships with historically disenfranchised and marginalized communities. And so while I am stepping into this call to action, I also want to lift up those who are organizing this and actually send you to get information from them. So if you want to learn more, the current strike is being called by the People's Strike, the Black Power Media, and their work is grounded in the reality that convenience often rests on the exploitation of people and the ecosystem. And they are asking us to pay attention to that truth. Participation in this blackout is not just about where we spend our money, but about who we trust to help us move forward with repair, widening the circle so that our choices reflect not only our values, but the wisdom who carry the deepest knowledge of that cost. There is no single right way to resist, and I also recognize that we don't all have the same ability to step back, the same choices in how we spend. But we can enter these types of practices in the ways we are able. And that includes shopping local, including the UUCE Holiday Bazaar and the many makers, markets, and fairs during December. Eugene actually does have an incredible maker community. And I know that this community holds a deep, fierce, and faithful longing for justice, for healing, for a world in which every person is cherished. May we accept our imperfect power and steward it with humility. May we recognize that in our limitations, we are gifted with opportunities for solidarity. And may our choices reflect our values, our commitment, and our care for the whole web of life, never forgetting that even now, even here, we are part of something sacred. Amen, and blessed be. And now, please join me in our chalice extinguishing words.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment.
These we carry in our hearts until we together again. And now in our going, the beauty of a boycott is that it's kind of a call to do nothing. So go forth, and may you find some space in this holiday week to do some nothing. And may that create room and space for some calm and some joy and our dreams. Amen, and so mote it be.